If you know anything about Genghis Khan, it's probably that he was a legendary Mongol warrior who founded one of history's largest contiguous land-based empires. But his life story is much more interesting than any of his titles. The child would be named Temujin, which means iron or steel. His mother, Holan, carried him for 40 days after his conception, so it was clear that she was carrying twins. He gathered together a group of other orphans and and together they performed hit-and-run attacks against the villagers who had wronged him. While most of the leaders accepted him as their boss, a few holdouts remained, including one powerful clan headed by a man named Jammu. In 1211, he began his campaign by sacking the city of Bukhara, killing many and taking others captive. With the help of a skilled cartographer named Yusuf, who was one of the many captives brought back from the war with Khwarezmia. Some historians argue that the bloodshed was nearly as bad as the numbers, suggesting Genghis often spared the lives of people he captured if they paid tribute. Others blame his physician, who might have poisoned him because he wanted to take over the role of imperial healer. Whatever the cause, Genghis died in 1227 and was buried in a secret location along with his wife and those who helped him rise to power. Perhaps the greatest testament to Genghis's impact on world history can be seen on a map, showing the vast area of the world he explored and conquered. His tomb has never been found and the spot of his burial remains a mystery to this day. If you click it, it will conquer the part of your screen that it inhabits and bring you one step closer to becoming the master of your YouTube destiny. You can also conquer our other social media accounts, each of which offers its own unique blend of historical hype. But only one of these accounts offers sneak peeks at new episodes, so if you want to be among the first to learn about upcoming topics, you know where to find them. Thank you for conquering this video with us, and we'll see you in the next one. Others claim that the deaths were unavoidable because his armies weren't picky about who they killed. Either way, by 1227, Genghis's empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe. This meant that within its borders were many different kinds of people who didn't always get along. To keep order, Genghis created a centralized legal code, which granted equal rights to all subjects regardless of religion or ethnicity. He also established a system of accounting to ensure that tax revenue was recorded accurately, and he appointed loyal generals to oversee various regions of his empire, allowing him to focus on ruling and waging war. Genghis put together a map of his empire so he could see where he wanted to go next. He conquered many lands, including parts of modern-day Iran, Iraq, Turkey, and China. After Beta Khan seized western lands, his brothers quarreled over who should rule where, leading to decades of fighting. Eventually, Genghis's grandson, Gudyuk, emerged victorious, uniting the empire once again. But he didn't last long, because after he died in 1248, the empire split apart again. Over the next few decades, the Golden Horde took control of Russia, while the Shagati Khanate ruled much of Central Asia. Meanwhile, the Ilkhanate conquered Persia, and the Yuan dynasty established in China was the largest and longest-lasting of the successor states. He raided deep into Eastern Europe, pillaging as he went. It's estimated that his armies were responsible for the deaths of over 40 million people, roughly 11% of the population of the world at the time. As he swept through the countryside, he amazed his own men by using catapults to hurl boulders over the walls of cities, allowing his army to enter and plunder them. Using strategies like this, Genghis and his Mongol hordes quickly conquered the In fact, they became so efficient at warfare, they completely encircled an entire Chinese army in 1218, killing or capturing everyone inside. This battle would go down in history as one of the most spectacular defeats ever suffered by a nation. Tensions rose until Jamukha started a war against Temujin. Though he was outnumbered, Temujin won key battles thanks to his ability to form temporary alliances with other tribes. One of these allies was a man named Togol Khan, whose name means universal ruler. Togol eventually switched sides, realizing that Temujin would be a powerful ally, especially now that he'd begun calling himself Genghis Khan, meaning Ocean of Bitterness. It wasn't long before Temujin became known as a fierce fighter and inspirational leader. At age 16, he met and married a girl named Borte, but she was soon taken captive by rival tribesmen. Temujin led a daring raid to rescue her, but was defeated. In exchange for his life, he was forced to become a slave of his captors. But even here, Temujin refused to back down, organizing rebellions and even killing one of his slave masters. Eventually, he earned his freedom and reunited with his wife. Together they would have 4 sons, making Temujin a contender for most prolific father of the year. Okay, Maybe not, considering he also sired at least 13 children with several other women. Mongol tradition dictated that in the case of twins, the younger sibling would be abandoned to die. And though we don't know exactly why she did what she did, Holland chose to leave little Temujin behind as she took her daughter to a safer location for birth. Hear us how this man went from being a baby left for dead in the Mongolian wilderness to becoming the most feared Mongol of all time. This was seen as a good omen in Mongol culture. And so Holland raised both children. When Temujin was 9, his father Yasuge was poisoned by rival Tatars during a peace negotiation. The exact circumstances surrounding his death are unknown, but we do know that Yasuge sent Temujin to live with his uncle while he executed those responsible. However, the rivals were clearly powerful because they also attacked and killed most of the family members who were hosting Temujin. They captured Temujin and made him watch as they slaughtered his mother and sister. Then they flung him into the river and let him float away. In 1162, a small tribe of Mongols living along the banks of the Anon River welcomed the birth of a son to their chief, Yasuge. When the girl was born healthy, Holland returned to the twin side and discovered that Temujin had been visited by a large bird of prey, a golden eagle. At this point, the young Temujin was forced to live as a nomad, hunting animals for food and wearing the skins of the beasts as clothing. In 1190, Temujin called a meeting of the tribal leaders from around Mongolia to discuss uniting the various Mongol clans under his leadership. Now that he was officially Genghis Khan, he turned his attention toward conquering the Khwarezm Empire, which controlled much of Central Asia. Now that he'd secured his empire's eastern borders, Genghis set his sights on the west. But well, it depends on who you talk to. However, just as he was expanding his empire further into China, Genghis fell ill. Some say he contracted the disease while crossing the Yangtze River. After Genghis died, his empire was divided among his sons, but the fragments didn't stay together for long. Though the empire founded by Genghis Khan eventually collapsed under the weight of its own ambition, his legacy lived on through his descendants, who continued to conquer new lands and meet new challenges for centuries. Okay, now it's time for you to explore and conquer your own goals, like that subscribe button you've been eyeing.